Jake, I was just wondering about. I'm not saying it was necessarily a catalyst or something, but Glasgow surprised you a bit last year with their tempo and matching you physically. You know? And I'm not saying that physicality is reserved just for South African sides and stuff, but just given the progress that Glasgow have shown over the past 2 years under Franco, have you sort of like seen the Scottish tradition of attacking rugby being married with a bit more, I want to say, South African edge to their game?
Well, the interesting thing is, I've chatted to people that play those teams often, because we've only been in this company.
Yeah, sure.
And Glasgow historically have been considered the better of the two teams, which is quite strange because you think Edinburgh, capital, and if you look at the sort of national setup, a lot of Edinburgh players are in the national setup. I think the one thing Glasgow have done, and you talk now over with Franco's time, but even before that, the recruitment they've done has been very good. The kind of players they bring into Glasgow, the kind of, and they sometimes are quite physical players that they take to Glasgow as well over the last couple of seasons. So I don't know if it's just the edge. I think the one thing that Scotland Rugby has shown, when they got the least amount of rugby players, registered rugby players out of any team in the World Cup, and yet they can still compete. And the reason for that is I think their two regional teams play like their national team, and that is a massive bonus. You know, if you consider, yes, there is an edge to their game, Glasgow. There is an edge now with Franco there as well, but both those teams and the national team almost play the same. You know, they almost have the same plays. They have the same players. In other words, the same kind of outside backs are dangerous. They've got forwards that do their jobs. They've got front rows that are. I mean, a lot of South Africans playing there now in Scotland. So I wouldn't say they surprised us. I think the point is they are a good team. And they've adapted well. You know, they and Edinburgh now both play on 4G pitches. So if you consider that, that's also a massive boost for their two teams. They play on the same pitches, they play the same way, and when they go into the national setup, they can almost take the best of both teams and use it as well. So it doesn't surprise me. I mean, they're top of the log. They're the one team that beat Leinster, I think, in the first or second round of this competition, and no one else has generally got that right in the last couple of years. So, and I know it was without internationals, but so was it for Glasgow as well. So, you know, there's obviously a lot of depth in Glasgow as well, from the point of view that when they lost the internationals, they could beat Leinster.
Jack and just lastly from me, we've talked a lot over the past month almost, about market conditions, for players and depth and that type of thing. But at least for this week, you can actually celebrate, retaining a whole whack full of players, which must be a nice change of.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, when you get a guy like David Creel and Ruan Vermaak and Grobbies and Jan Hendrik and Marco van Staden committing another 3 years. I think I must add that the reason they do it is because the one thing the Remgro way or the Arc way, which is our two owners, is to treat people properly. Now I know people go, but other clubs also do that. Yes, we're not saying that, but there's a definite understanding here. I'll use Kainan Moody as an example. We signed Kainan as a long-term project as a 19-year-old, and his contract's changed 4 times since he's been here. And the reason is every time he does better, we don't ever want him to feel as though we caught him with a long-term contract that now is underpaid. And that is, as I said, it's the Bulls way or the Remgro way or the Arc way. It's we make sure that if a guy does, that's why he extends 3 years, because they know that if they do better, then we call them in and we renegotiate and we make sure that he's happy. We don't. I'm sure you guys have seen that thing, The Last Dance. We don't want a Scottie Pippen on our hands where a guy feels he commits long-term and he's almost sold himself short. So I am very happy. And again, it's just another example of CEO, board members, president and head coach on the same page, which is, what every sporting industry wants is you want to make sure you're aligned. And I'm sure all of you have seen that when it comes to our club, that it's not done by chance. It's based on the fact that we all aligned on where we want to go.
Jake, just looking at the team, it's obviously a massive boost to have Ruan and Marco.
Yeah, I mean, we've done really well without them, to be fair. I mean, they two really good stalwarts of our club. And, you know, one's a World Cup winner, one's the captain. You know, we had obviously lost our captain for a while, especially now that Marcel was out for a while as well. And our line out, you know, not that it was poor, it's just so much better when he's involved because of his experience. So tomorrow against Glasgow, I mean, they've got a really good line out. And to have him back and have Marco's, you know, breakdown ability available too, because one thing we know about Glasgow, they play quickly, breakdowns are important, and having a guy like Marco that's really good at the breakdown is also going to be a massive boost for us.
And obviously, Glasgow, they also play like tempo. Do you expect them to play the same way, 2 o'clock? Or do you think?
I hope they do. I mean, I'll be fair.
People sit and have water breaks and this little niggle and a lot of stoppages.
Well, I mean, you saw what happened last time we played at 2 o'clock in the afternoon against one of the top sides. You know, the game could never get going. But I hope that it's actually quite an interesting, I suppose, complexity, because if they go away from what's working for them, in some ways it's not them. If they continue to do what they do well at altitude at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they could run out of legs. You know, that's just the way. I mean, it's not a secret. When you ask any player who's played at Loftus, he'll tell you in the second half it feels like your legs fall off. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm not sure whether or not they'll come with an attitude where they want to try and run us off our feet, which is what they've been good at. And as Heinz said last year, they really caught us. We landed there, and you know, before we knew it, that 4G pitch was so quick we couldn't get our hands on the ball. And it's something that they do well. So it'll be interesting to see what Franco does tomorrow. You know. But we've got to expect both. You know, we've got to expect that if they want to play quickly, we've got to be good enough. And if they slow it down, you know, we've got to then, when we can control the tempo to our tempo as well. So we, you know, the 50% of the time we have the ball, we must then play like we want to play.
Jake, just on a guy like Franco, I mean, you guys, you've known well, he's been around a long time. Yeah. He has a certain style of play. You've been around a long time as well, and he knows Loftus extremely well. Just how much does that make it more difficult coaching against someone like that?
I just laughed when you said that, because I mean, I'm getting so old now, Bren. I was in the coaching staff when he played under Nick Mallet. I mean, that's how old I'm getting now, you know. I mean, he was playing for the Boks and won the Tri-Nations when I was in that coaching staff. So I've known him a long time. And in fact, I knew his dad. His dad was headmaster of San Duplessis when I was coaching at Jeppe, and I coached against his dad as well. So I mean, I know the family, you know, better than most. And he's played here. He came to the Bulls. He was a very good Bulls player for us. I think he became a Springbok out of here as well. So he's got fond memories, and he'll understand. I mean, that's why, you know, just now what Kobus asked me, will he play quickly? I mean, he'll know more than anybody what it's like to play at Loftus at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday. But he's an astute coach. I mean, he's done well. You've got to give him credit. You know, he's taken this team at top of the log. They only got 2 teams in Scotland, and I'm talking about they don't have lots and lots of registered rugby players. And you've got to give credit to where it's due. And he's done really well with this group of players, and he seems to have them playing, you know, the way that he wants them to play. Everyone knows. You know, I can say the same. Billy Leroux was coached by him at Free State, so I mean, as much as he knows about us, we probably know as much about him. Me having seen him as a youngster, and Billy having been coached by him in Free State. So, and Goosen probably too. So, but it's you know, one thing I've learned about rugby. It's not whether I know Franco or he knows me. It's about what the players do tomorrow.
Saying that he's got a number of South Africans, his team, Carl Slang's grown as their captain as well. Obviously, that makes a bit of a difference. They know a lot of your players will know them as well from the past.
Well, some of them played together at Stellenbosch. I mean, I think guys like Chris Smith and those guys played the same time at Stellenbosch when they played Varsity Cup with Carl. So, yeah, they know him well. And I'll go back to what I said just now, Brendan. Their signings have been good. You know, you look at their centre combination. You know, Tupelotu's not a Scottish guy. You know, the way they've signed over the years, Glasgow have been very clever in bringing in people that they need in certain positions to make their Scottish-based players play better and obviously and grow. And let's not also underestimate. I've got Jaco van der Walt who played in Scotland, so he'd also know a lot of those players. So but it actually counts for nothing when the whistle goes tomorrow afternoon. You know, who knows who and how much you know about everything. we're at the knockout. We're getting the knockout stage that I'm talking about now, because whether we like it or not, it's knockout rugby now. You have to win these games to stay in the playoffs. And so, my message is simple. We've got to play our best rugby in the next 6 games. We've got 3 pool games and three playoff games. And if we play the best rugby we have the whole year in those 6, we give ourselves a chance to win.
Last one for me, just with Marco and Ron being back, have you seen a difference in terms of the experience and the leadership in the group?
Well, I mean, it happens automatically. Just having Marco around. I mean, he's a good guy. So he's also, it's not just the rugby thing. It's what he brings off the field, and he's popular, and and Ruan. I mean, he's grown as a captain. I remember sitting here in front of you guys about a year and a half ago, and guys are asking me, "You sure he's the captain? Is he the right guy? Is he not too young?" I mean, look how he's grown as a leader now. And we've got the same with Ulrich, and Reinhard Ludwig's been a captain. And so before we know it, this time next year, we'll have like 6 or 7 guys who captain the Bulls. Nazam Kar captain the Bulls. So it's the I mean, players, they like to play with the best players. That's one of the things. And when you get a guy like Marco who's won a World Cup and he's known, I mean, for what he offers us, you can see all of a sudden Ulrich and Cameron Hanekom, they're going to play with him. I mean, that's not a bad addition to your squad when you bring a guy like Marco to come and play with those 2 guys. One's 23, one's 22 today. So it's I suppose like a birthday present for Cameron.
Coach, you've had a bit of time off. The last time you spoke, you said that you weren't going to be completely off. The guys are going to be on the training ground.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you've been trying to drive across to the players during this period?
Well, basically, it's to top up everything we needed to top up, because what happens, we have one more block, which is the finals of the EPCR. That's the one block. But after that, you're on song for the next 3 weeks in a row. Hopefully, if you get through to the finals. And so all we're doing now is we're just topping up on things that we haven't had time to top up with because of travel, because of shorter training weeks, and basically looked at our game and whether it's been tactically sorting things out, or whether it's been physically sorting things out, from a conditioning point of view. But it's basically been, it's not off. It was a tough week for them to put in, sort of money in the bank, so that if we need to get to the next 6-7 weeks and we need to bring out the best, that they've got something in the tank.
How much of a confidence booster would it be if you guys can get one over Glasgow tomorrow? Just thinking of how close you guys are on the ground and what that could mean for you guys going into a playoff.
Well, it's as I said to you, it's like knockout rugby now. Look at all the permutations, and I'm sure you guys probably, I don't know if you do it as much as we do, but we work out Ulster still got to play these guys, Connacht still got to play those guys, Leinster, and so you work it out in your head. There's so many things that can happen. We've probably just qualified now with the points we have in the top 8, so that's one box ticked. Now it's about who beats who and all that, but the one thing you have to be able to control is you have to win your games. You can't get to a situation where you, in the last 2 weeks of the tournament or last week of the competition, where you're hoping someone rolls someone over so that you can sneak into another position. And at this point in time, I think Munster, Leinster, Bulls, or Glasgow can finish top. So it just shows you, and then that's worth gold. When you finish top in this competition, you get a home semi, a home quarter, a home final. We've seen historically what that means to the teams that have to travel and what that means to teams that host games. So I suppose what I'm sharing with you is that the boost is making sure we play our best rugby in the next 3 games to make sure whatever happens in the other games has no material effect on us.
And lastly from you, Coach, you've always spoken about you being here for the long term.
Yes.
And the Bulls being fairly new and young to this European system.
Yes.
These signings that we've seen taking place over the last 2 weeks, are those the first steps in that longevity of you having a core group of players and bonding with these guys?
Yes.
And then the Bulls becoming a bigger force?
It's exactly that. I mean, I was saying now to Edgar on the field when he was at captain's practice, guys like Jan-Hendrik Wessels, he's played 65 times for the Bulls. He's 23 years old. He turned 23 2 days ago. 65 games. Now imagine in 3 years' time, we're going to have, hopefully, 95% of our squad will play over 100 games for for the Bulls, and that is what we want to get to. We want to get to a situation where the whole squad, that are running out the tunnel have played over 100 times for the club, because that makes it. You get continuity, you get confidence. So when you can commit these guys for 3-4 more years, it can only send the right message out, and that's exactly what I said to you. Time will come. Still got Ulrich 23, still got Cameron 22 today, as I said. Still got Ludwig 21, hasn't turned 22 yet. Still got Jan-Hendrik Wessels 23. We're not there yet, but when they do commit for 3 years, then what it does send to me is that come 3 years' time, and I give you the team, it's almost like I can give you the team now for 3 years' time. I can almost give you the starting lineup now, and that's a nice place to be in when you've got a club like this.
Jack, just something we were talking about, this little sign that says altitude matters. It seems like the overseas teams have sort of sussed it out now.
Yeah.
It's not that much of an advantage anymore. I'm talking specifically maybe about the Irish coming and the likes. Do you think it still is traditionally a strong point for us, or do you think they've got it waxed now?
No, I don't think they got it waxed. I mean, sometimes we came here with the Brumbies and beat the Bulls. We didn't tell you that altitude helped us or didn't help us. And whether you like it or not, it's scientifically proven. That's why Olympic athletes go and train at high altitude before the Olympic Games. And that's not, I didn't make that up. That's what they do. They go to high altitude venues and they train for Olympic sports. So it does matter. Some people, as I said, tactically can work out and they get it right. And you all know what I'm talking about. Some teams are naive and think they can run through it. In other words, they can get through that barrier. But there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I studied sports science and I was a phys ed teacher. I mean, as I said to you, sporting teams go to altitude before Olympic Games to prepare properly. So it is an advantage we have. It's no different to when you play on 4G pitches overseas, which we don't have. It's no different to playing in the mud in rainy conditions like some provinces have to play in, and we don't play in that. So it is an advantage we use, and I don't think because some teams beat you here, that necessarily means they worked out the altitude. I mean, there's always been this school of thought, you either come one day before the game or you come 8 days before a game. And sometimes it's not in your hands. Sometimes you come here for 1 week, you only land on a Tuesday, and you can't get here 8 days before, and then it does have an effect. I mean, I spoke to a mate of mine at Benetton, and they're only coming here next Friday. Now, I mean, they're staying in Durban next week, so they play the Sharks, and they're staying the whole week in Durban. And I suppose their logic is they've only got 1 day to worry about altitude. They get here Friday, play Saturday. And so I suppose when I'm answering your question, if it wasn't a factor, they wouldn't have stayed there till Friday.
It's tactics like Munster did.
Yeah, as I said, I think tactically what Munster did against us and the Lions, they were clever enough to play the game in the tempo they wanted. And that doesn't mean and just shows you. So I suppose what I am saying is, if teams have to think about how they're going to play tactically in altitude, then it must be a factor.
On the pitches, one last question. You guys replaced the pitch beginning of the year.
Yes.
Why didn't you do a 4G? Is it a matter of money or something?
No. I'm not a fan of 4G. Firstly, I get so many injuries on those things. Number one. Number two. When do you use it? You probably only use it in the weeks where you play away against a team that's got 4G, and it can happen that you don't use it more than 3 times in a season. I mean, once you get to playoff games now, I'm talking about neutral venues in EPCR and that, chances are you don't get to play on those 4G pitches or 3G pitches. So it wasn't. I think we've got a little bit of 4G on the sides where we can do lineouts and we can do something like that, and there might be an idea one day to put a little bit of a 4G sort of square where we can do some sort of drills. But I think return on investment, I'm not a fan, and the players don't enjoy it either. I mean, they don't really, if you could ask them, they're not really fans of running on falling on 4G pitches with their knees and not giving way and all that. So it's not a priority for us. I mean, what we have spoken about is funny. I mean, our psychologist Henning asked, why don't we water the field and make it like a mud bath when we go to certain fixtures? But I mean, again, the value of having that for 1 week where you train in the mud, wet the ball, and and make it like a quagmire is probably not a return on your investment either.
Thank you.
Jack, back to your team, you've gone for Akker and your choice for Akker. Horses for courses?
No, I mean, what you notice with those two is if one's on the bench, one generally gets 35 minutes and the other one gets 45 minutes, or we maybe get to 50, 30. So they're both very happy on the basis that it doesn't matter whether you get the starting jersey or the ending jersey. There's enough rugby there, and Grobis has had 2 starts, and now it's probably time that we have a look at the other options when Akker starts, and then let's not forget, guys. I've got Jan Hendrik, who I rate very highly still. And we're going to have to. We're in a very fortunate situation. We've got 3 really good hookers, And I've said it to you before, Simon. I don't really know where the national selectors' heads are. I'll give you this example. Grobis, we know what his worth is to us. We know what he's done in the 4 years. He's probably been the most consistent player for us in 4 seasons. Then you've got Akker, who's got Springbok experience, who's been around the block, played in the UK, understands that game as well. And then you've got Jan Hendrik, who's the up-and-coming youngster. So if the Boks are planning for 4 years and Jan Hendrik's the boy, well, that's fantastic. If they go for experience because Ackerman's not ready, Marx is not ready, or Bongi gets injured and they need an experienced guy, then chances are they could go for Akker van der Merwe. If they go for the guy who's been the most consistent and he throws well, and he's very good at breakdowns and he's got incredible work rate, they'll go for Grobis. So I'm very fortunate in that that's my sell to the 3 players. I want them all to play, I want them all to be happy, I want them all to do what they do well, and then we see what happens in the next 4-year cycle where the national team goes. And if that means one of them goes there, then I'm lucky I've still got 2 more.
You've touched on 2 points. Earlier you've explained on your long-term strategy to get the young guys, getting them tally up on the Bulls as well. It is a given fact that in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, most of those guys will be part of the Springbok team.
Yes.
Which is a given fact.
Yes.
I suppose that's more or less, you personally will get some kind of a sort of a boost and a sort of an accolade towards what you've been crying and preaching about.
Yeah.
Let the players stay in South Africa.
Yes.
Isn't that some sort of a double up?
Well, Simon, I'm glad you asked me that question. So yes, I will get a massive thrill by producing Springboks. When I went to the Brumbies, we had 2 Wallabies, and when I left, we had about 19 guys who were playing for Australia. And this is the same project that I'm busy with here. I would like every person that's at the Bulls now to become a Springbok. So that's my first, and that's why whatever we do, our rugby program, the coaching, the added value we can give off the field from a technical point of view, 2 skills coaches like Piwe and Kennedy coming in, that's all part of growing the player over the time that he's at the Bulls. They had pony meetings this weekend, this week, as you all know, it was in the media. One of the things that came out there is what do we do to make sure guys like Ludwig, JF van Heerden, I'm using 2 examples of guys that are at our club, don't leave in 2-3 years' time. And maybe one of the ways, and I don't want to, again, talk out of turn because I'm not sure, but one of the ways is you've got to get a return on your investment. If they get pony money, then they can't just up and leave after 3 years. Because theoretically, not only have we invested in them, so have SA Rugby. So there's a lot of thought behind going on. Using an example, let's say JF van Heerden starts getting pony money because he's a player of national interest. Well, then it's highly unlikely that if you've invested 3 years in a player that you would want to see him go overseas and play for someone else. And that's how I would read into that. And so maybe there should be like a junior category and then an intermediate category and then a senior category. And that intermediate category, if you've invested in that guy, you don't really want him to leave at that prime time. I mean, let's be fair, we're losing Corné Beets. He was voted as the best junior player in South Africa. He got an award at the SA Awards, and then he left to go to Leicester. Now that means that for 2 years, not only have we paid him, he must have been on junior pony money, and then we let him go. Now we got to relook at how we're going to get the Ludwigs and the JFs and the Cameron Hanekoms to commit long term here. And I'm talking about in South Africa. I've said it to you many times, Simon, and I repeat myself. I know I want players to come back, and I understand you can't get everyone back, but what we maybe need to do is then look at plan B, which is to keep these 22, 23-year-olds that are now coming through our system, in the system, without going and then selecting them. You understand? But again, those are just discussions and thoughts that I've got when I'm talking to you, is You don't want to reinvent the wheel every 3 years. You get a Cameron Hanekom, Reinhard Ludwig, Jan Hendrik Wessels, and every 3 years all you do is you say to me, who's the next one on the rank? And then I've got another 3 kids that are coming out of school, and everyone tells me these are the next 3 gems, you know. So it is something that I think we'd have to look at. But for now, you know, I'm selfish. I'm here till 27. Maybe 90% of my squad here is till 97. Till 27. 97. 97% of my squad are here till 2027. So selfishly, I should be okay because my squad will be okay. But we also know that what we want to do at the club is create a legacy where you don't go from where the Bulls were in 2008 and 9, champions of Super Rugby, and then 10 years you don't win a trophy. So we're very conscious of the fact that we don't selfishly just only look after this group for 4 years or next 3 years and then pull the plug.
Jake, was it sort of easy to sell the project to the players because most of them, you know, they're hinting that there's something special happening. Was it easy to sell the project to them?
Yeah, the nice thing, I must say, the nice thing that came out of this is that a lot of them asked the CEO if I'm staying, which is also nice when you're the coach, because they weren't keen on committing if they didn't know where I was going to go or where the club was going to go. You know? And that's a nice thing when you're a coach, is that if you have confidence from your players that they'll stay, if they know where the club's going to, you get confidence as a coach as well. So when you say how easy it was, I mean, all I had to do is say I'm committing that if we stay, in other words, once Quirson signs to stay and Kanan signs to stay and, you know, and all these players sign to stay, we've got to then collectively, not just me, collectively say, look, then we must be able to produce on what we're going to offer them for the next 3 seasons as well. And that's, you know, that's the nice part of where I am. People ask me where you are in your coaching now. You know, I'm 60 years old. I've coached around the world. I've got a board that understands. I've got a CEO who understands. I've got a president who's obviously completely and utterly on board with us. I've got players who want to stay at the club. I mean, it's a great place to be when you're coaching, to be in an environment like this as a coach.
Yeah, Jake, if you just look at the stats of the URC, all the top teams are good on attack, but not so good on defense, with the exception of Glasgow.
Yeah.
Surely you've taken notice of that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they also play on 4G pitches, and the guys that when you look at the stat, you can look at 4G pitches, many more points are scored on 4G pitches because the fact that it takes you so long to adapt. When you land there, I'm talking about teams that are not used to it. It's much quicker. You know, if I can use an example, it's like putt and golf. It's a hell of a different. I mean, it's one is very quick, and if you're not used to it, you can leak points quickly. But I'm glad, you know, the one thing that I am consistent of is the Crusaders in the years they dominated Super Rugby were the best attacking team. The Brumbies were the best attacking team when they dominated Super Rugby. You look at the Japanese, the Panasonic team win every championship in Japan, they're the best attacking team. And sometimes when they're not, Suntory are, and Suntory win the championship. And so the one consistent thing that we've done at the Bulls is we've been in the top when it comes to attack, scoring points, and that gives you a chance. When your attack is very good and you're scoring lots of points, you know, I listened to a game the other day where the commentator said they asked the player and they said they need to, I think it was Toulouse Harlequins on the weekend, and Harlequins said they're going to have to score 30 points to win because they knew that Toulouse would score 30 points. Now, that just shows you, rugby's, if you play certain teams where you know you have to score at least 30 points to win the game, it means that you respect the fact that teams can attack. And we're not there yet, as in the complete package yet. We're not there yet, but we have consistently in the last 3 years been up there as the best attack, and probably, like you say, Glasgow. I'm not sure about their defence, but defensively we've probably been a little bit frail at times as well. But we have improved massively since we started this campaign, as in 3 years ago.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Sorry, Jake, can I ask you one thing?
Sure.
I don't know if it's a bit,
Sure.
but the scrum rules, they've now changed.
Yes.
Rugby. What do you think about that?
Just explain to me because I read something about the free kick. Is that right?
Yeah, if you have a free kick, you're not allowed to take a scrum in place of the free kick anymore. So what the teams will do now, they will scrum give away a free kick, but then the stronger team can't take a scrum again. They have to take a free kick.
So I want to quickly explain to you, and I know there's going to be a conspiracy theorist about why that happens because certain teams have strong scrums.
Yeah.
I want to explain to you guys that the laws of rugby are made for school kids. They're not made for professional players. And I think people that read into that are naive because, so I'll give you an example. When you used to have a squeeze ball where a player used to go into his all fours and push the ball through his legs. Remember, it was a big thing at a certain stage, and then they cancelled it. Because what happens, school kids see that, and then they copy what they see Delalio do, or they see Malcolm Marx do. Now those guys they're men with strong necks, and when you get a little kid tries to do that and someone lands on him and he's now paralyzed, or then parents don't want their kids to play rugby. So if you just take that into context, if you can limit the amount of scrums, you're going to get more kids to play rugby. No one's saying the scrum should be depowered. No one's saying, I mean, let's be fair, over the time, schoolboy rugby's gone from you could scrum to now you can only scrum a meter, they tried to meter and a half, whatever. So it has changed. All I would say in answer to that is there's no conspiracy about that. There will be that the lawmakers and the referees are going to have to work out how many free kicks they give now at scrum time, because there will be a lot more playing around. I mean, coaches are like that. They'll now find a way that sometimes to give a team a free kick is better to defend than it is to defend from a scrum. So that is something that the referees are going to have to take into consideration. But what I am stressing to the people out there is the laws of the game are made to make more people play it, and the laws of the game are to make sure it's safer, and the laws of the game are there to make it clear to teams that's how the shape of the game should be. So it's got nothing to do with some teams want to scrum and other teams. It would be for parents to be comfortable that you wouldn't have, because let's be fair, every time you go scrum, that means some schoolboy sides would scrum double the amount that they would necessarily have to, and therefore that increases the risk of having neck injuries, etc., etc. So yeah, I don't read anything into that other than the lawmakers have looked at a way in which they can make the game shape a lot better. And let's be fair, guys. I mean, if it's a tap free kick and you have to tap and run it now, well, then theoretically there's more ball in play and there's more time. And so then you look at it from that context, instead of just saying, oh, that means that the powerhouse scrum teams are now disadvantaged. I don't believe that at all. I mean, people said that when they brought in 50-22s and people brought in, when you could, all those things were supposedly you couldn't kick the ball out if you didn't pass it back into your 22. All that's happened is ball in play now instead of a game that used to be 24 minutes ball in play is now 37, 38, 40 minutes ball in play. Now, who knows, maybe free kick, tap, free kick, next one's a penalty, because it won't be free kick all the time. It will be a penalty, and now you give yardage away and territory. So, who knows, maybe scrumming will improve, and maybe the tactics of scrumming will be different as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, place